This is of course not what we planned this week. Hi, I'm Victoria Pearson, but you can call me V, and I know I did say last week we were probably going to be doing a witchy one this week, but honestly I've done no prep for it whatsoever, absolutely exhausted, so you're just going to get me yapping about what I have been up to this week. So as you may know if you follow my shorts, I recently bought myself a sewing machine. I'm really very happy with it. I haven't used a sewing machine for 26 years. And when I did use the sewing machine 26 years ago, I had an experienced sewist, actually a seamstress, because she did it professionally, helping me, supervising me, telling me when to unpick and how to redo and all of that sort of thing. It took me a good 10 months to make my project back then with supervision, but that was in part because I had a lot of hand embroidery on that, and that takes forever. That being said, the thing that I made, which was a cot quilt for my eldest, has survived 26 years of being washed and tumble dried and loved by 4 children, and it is still intact. It hasn't broken at all. So I'm guessing that I have got some buried, very deeply buried sewing skills in there somewhere. I think I showed you guys, I made myself a little dress. I'll try and remember to put a little insert of it here if I can remember to do that. But I made a dress out of 2 maxi dresses, both of which were beautiful fabric, but were 2 sort of straight up and down. I wanted a bit more swish. So I opened the side seams and I hand sewed in fabric panels, and it took me forever. And I hate hand sewing. I really, really hate hand sewing. And now that it's finished, I look at it and I think, that would have been so much better if I'd used a sewing machine. It would be so much smoother, it would look so much better. And so I thought, you know what, over the years, I keep saying, oh, if I had a sewing machine, I could have just done that. And so I'm going to buy myself one. Now, I didn't go for the cheapest one because I've made that mistake before. I bought a little one that was like £50 from John Lewis's years and years and years ago. And the only thing I ever made out of it was 1 set of doll's clothes, because it couldn't handle normal fabrics. It could only cope with the thinnest of fabrics that you wouldn't want for making clothes. So it was kind of a waste of money. I stuck it in the back of a cupboard. I forgot about it for years and years and years. And so when I was looking at buying myself a sewing machine for now, I decided that I wasn't going to go for the very cheapest one. I went for the most well-known brand that I could find, but their cheapest one. So I ended up with a Brother LS14s, which was about £89 from Amazon. And then I did buy the 4-year extended warranty with it as well. And so it wasn't the cheapest, but it wasn't the most expensive one. Like, you can pay thousands and thousands for a Singer or a really good Brother machine. I'm not ready for that. I wanted a workhorse that could do a straight stitch, a zigzag stitch, maybe some buttonholes for when I'm like a bit more confident about the whole thing, but mostly just straight stitch, zigzag stitch, and some way of doing a back stitch to secure things. And the machine that I got has got all of those plus buttonholes. It's got several different zigzag stitches and several different running stitches, and I would have actually shown you myself setting it all up if I'd been a bit more confident about it, but I was nervous that it was all going to go horribly wrong, and it's much harder to focus on what you're doing if you're also trying to show somebody on YouTube what you're doing. Maybe when I've got the hang of it a bit more, I will give you a sort of tutorial on how to thread it up and do the bobbin and get started and stuff. If you're interested in that, let me know and I will sort of prioritise that. But for now, I wanted to just get used to the machine by myself before I showed you. Now, the whole idea of why I got the machine was because I have this notion that clothes should be comfortable and that they should fit your lifestyle and they shouldn't be too restricting. And apparently that is a notion that is like wildly unheard of in the fashion world, because I am really struggling to find clothes that both fit me and fit my style and fit my comfort levels and my sensory issues, but also have pockets and stuff like that and don't restrict me, allow me to sit like a weird little EDS pretzel, because that's what I do. And so I thought, well, if you can't find it, you've got to make it, haven't you? And so the whole idea for me was that I wanted to be able to make some clothes that were adjustable, so that because my weight fluctuates, I don't want to spend hours and hours making something and then gain a bit of weight or lose a bit of weight and not be able to wear that anymore. So I wanted things that were adjustable. I wanted things that feel nice from a sensory perspective, so I don't want any annoying bulky seams, I don't want any labels, I want a fabric that feels nice against my skin, that's breathable. I don't want too many really restricting waistbands or things that restrict my movement at all. I want to wear clothes that will let me go forage in the woods and run around the supermarket and go to a family barbecue and not have to be thinking all the time about how am I sitting, how am I standing, is this acceptable? I want clothes for real life. And I can't seem to find them in the styles that I want. So I thought I'm going to make some. Turns out making clothes is quite hard. Who would have thought that? Turns out that sewing actually involves a heck of a lot of maths and also much more ironing than should be accepted by anybody ever. In fact, I think that I used my iron more over the 6 hours of sewing project over the last 2 days than I have in the 23 years that I have owned that iron. I didn't burn myself though, which is very unusual for me. Part of the reason that I avoid using my iron is that I'm not very coordinated and I burn myself often, usually around here somehow, but I managed to get through this whole project without burning myself once, so that is impressive. I decided I wasn't going to buy any new fabric. I'm not going to waste my money on that until I know that I can make designs that I feel nice in, that I like the look of, and that feel constructed properly. And so I had an old green single duvet cover, and I decided to make that into my first skirt. And I just did rectangular panels with pockets and an elasticated waistband so that sort of pulls it all in. And I think that I made my rectangles far too big because although I love the flow of the skirt and the way that it swooshes and the way that it feels, my pockets are a nice size, I have got so much fabric around the waistband that it actually makes me feel a bit self-conscious. And because of that, I think it looks really homemade rather than handmade. I'm not giving up though. I have another duvet cover that can be sacrificed, and I'm going to attempt a wrap skirt instead this time so that I can have a flat waistband and it can tie around, and hopefully it won't add as much bulk to my waist. But again, I'm not the best at precisely measuring things, and I feel like any kind of skirt where I have to cut panels, I am also going to have to measure things. That makes me very anxious, to be honest, because maths is not my strong point. Spatial awareness, also not my strongest point. But I feel with a wrap dress, because you don't have to be super precise, it's not like it's a fitted pencil skirt, it's going to wrap around my body a couple of times. I think I can get away with being a little bit loosey-goosey with that without creating that giant waistband as well. Now I haven't finished hemming my first skirt yet. If I finish that before I have finished editing this video, I will put a little picture of it, but if not, I will wait a couple of weeks and then I'll show you all the things that I've made, because I have plans for pajama trousers as well as the wrap skirt. But that's what I've been hyper-focusing on this week, and I say hyper-focusing because what I did was I ordered my sewing machine. Then while I was waiting for it to arrive, I watched about 1 billion tutorials of various different types, including ones for the specific machine that I've got and for putting together like patterns as well. I actually want to shout out to She Sews Seams here on YouTube because I watched her tutorial about making a skirt out of a thrifted sheet, and that is the one that I followed. And the bulk on the waistband was mostly because I doubled my fabric, and that was my fault. If I had done it the way she said, I think it would have actually been a lot lighter on the waistband and not looked quite so bulky. But I found her tutorials really easy to follow and really accessible, and she makes it seem like it's not going to be that hard. And so I really enjoyed those tutorials that I watched, and I'm definitely going to be binging her some more. It's also from Pennsylvania, and I used to live there, and she very much reminds me of the neighbours that I used to have there, who I really did adore. So I think there's a little bit of a touch of nostalgia in there for me as well. But She Sews Seams, I think her name is Chelsea. Her tutorials are really simple to follow, and she will get right in there and show you exactly how it's done as well, where a lot of tutorials seem to assume that if you've got a sewing machine, you must know what this and that is, what these words mean, how to do this particular thing. She kind of assumes that you are a beginner, and I found that really helpful. The trouble with me hyper-focusing on a thing, like I said, I watched a billion tutorials, and then when my machine arrived, I immediately was like, right, thread it up. I've already prepped my fabric, everything's ready. I've got my little test piece and I did some test stitches. That all went swimmingly well. In fact, really do very much recommend this particular sewing machine for beginners because it was so simple to thread up and so very easy to use, and at no point did I feel like the sewing machine and fabric were ganging up on me. It felt like it was me and the sewing machine versus the fabric, and that I was a lot more comfortable with. But because I had done all of this watching of tutorials, and then I did my sampler, and then of course I had to get started on the skirt, and the skirt came together much quicker than I expected it to. So my brain immediately went, oh, what's the next project? Well, I didn't like this aspect of this skirt. How can I change that and make it better? And so for the last 2 nights, I have been dreaming about sewing. I have been troubleshooting waistbands in my sleep and getting stressed about pleats, even though I've never made a pleat in my life. So if you have a brain that's a bit like mine and struggles to switch off from your hobbies or tell the difference between hobbies and hyper-focuses, maybe stop an hour before bed and do something completely different so that your brain isn't constantly trying to do sewing maths while you're trying to rest. Because I woke up this morning absolutely exhausted, thinking, how am I going to pass my waist tie through my waistband without having to create a buttonhole first? I don't need to worry about that yet. My brain's getting really ahead of itself. But we're having fun with it. No sheets are safe from me at the moment. Hide your tablecloths in the charity shop because this is what I'm doing. And hopefully, by the time I get to skirt sort of 5 or 6, I might have one that I feel comfortable wearing outside. When I get to that point, that is when we're going to buy the funky fabric that I've got sitting in my shopping basket. It's got crows on it. I'm very excited to get to the stage where I can be like, ooh, beautiful fabric, let's make a dress. And it looks like a wearable dress. But mostly I just want to get into this because clothes should have pockets. I have to carry stuff. I'm tired of carrying a bag. It hurts my shoulder. I want a giant pocket. And that was the thing that I did like the most about my green skirt, was because my pocket is so big you could fit a cat in it. You want to know how I know? Because when I'd finished cutting out the pattern pieces for my pockets, I laid them on the floor to start the next ones, looked back and my next door neighbour's cat was just curled up on one of them, using it as a bed. So if I really wanted to, I could have pocket cats in that skirt. And who doesn't want a pocket cat? Apart from maybe the cat. Hopefully by next week I will be a little bit more rested and a little bit able to shut off from new hobby and do other stuff, and we actually will have a witchy video. Although some people might argue that this is a witchy video, because look, I am taking a duvet cover and turning it into a skirt. That's transmutation right there. I'm doing most of it just with the power of my brain, some muttered curses and a very fast moving needle, which is kind of like a magic wand. Join me on Monday for my next vlog, where I have no idea what I'm going to be talking about. I might show you some creations, we might be doing a witchy thing, or we might do something completely different depending on where my week goes. You never quite know with me. I am a bit of a chaos gremlin. I do apologise for it, but I know you like it really. But if you can't wait until Monday to see me again, I will be here every single morning in your shorts, taking a great big deep breath, letting you know what I'm grateful for. And that in itself is a kind of spell. When we tell our brains to look for something to be grateful for, it notices all sorts of things, and that just generally makes us loads happier. So I love when you join in with that. The little things that make you happy do make me smile. So like and subscribe, or don't, I'm not your mum, but either way you have yourself a magical week.